Good evening, this is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. There were two big political stories yesterday. The Supreme Court declared some parts of the disbursement acceleration program unconstitutional, and President Aquino, after a few days, spoke up and admitted it was what he claimed was a drug conviction that convinced him to exclude Nora Honor from the list of those who would be named national artists. We will talk about the national artist controversy, but let's talk first to a member of the President's cabinet about the DAP and pork. And well, maybe we could ask her about Nora Honor, Justice Secretary Daida de Lima. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Pia. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my first time in your show, in this show, but certainly not my first time with you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again for being here. Ma'am, let's begin with this. What is your reading of yesterday's ruling of the Supreme Court on the DAP?
You see, Pia, it's difficult to really make such any definitive comment at this point that we have not seen yet the full text of the decision. We have been shown the dispositive portion that was announced by the spokesperson of the Supreme Court. But it's really difficult to make any commentary or to make any conclusion at this point, because it's like watching a movie at the ending part, and then people
then backtracking.
People will ask, maganda ba yung movie?
Okay.
Nang pinakita lang sa'yo is the ending. I'm also wondering, well, I guess the Supreme Court has a reason why they have to do that, why they have to make an advance announcement. And I think this is not the first time that they did it, if I'm not mistaken, when they issued also, or they issued or they announced the decision in the RH, law. And then they told us, Attorney Te was announcing also that the decision is still being routed for signing.
Signatures, yeah.
So, well, what I know is that a decision, unless and until promulgated, is no decision at all. But there's been an announcement already. But as I said, the Supreme Court must have a reason why they authorized the spokesperson to announce already the results of the voting.
Could it be because Tuesday is en banc session day, and they really did make a decision already earlier in that day, and then they were just going to make the announcement and then to follow in black and white?
Oh, well, yes, they could have just announced that, yes, there have been voting already. But as to exactly what the decision is, we have to defer that until everybody signs the decision and until everybody issues their respective opinions, whether, of course, there is a ponencia, and they say that it is a unanimous decision, but then again, I'm sure there would be members that would be issuing their respective separate concurring opinions.
But ma'am, many of us in my profession, media, quite a number of us have covered the justice beat, and part of our training is when we come across a decision or a resolution or any ruling is let's go straight to the dispositive portion first, and then we read. Then we read from
the lawyers do that also. Most lawyers do that. When I was still practicing, that's what I do whenever I receive a copy of any decision, especially those that I'm looking forward to. I've been expecting. So I would look at the dispositive portion first, because you have to know kung nanalo ka o hindi, nanalo yung kliyente mo o hindi. And then that's it. Then you just go back to the full text. But then again, issues like this, these are major issues. We have to know at once the context by which, or the raison d'etre, why that's the ruling of the Supreme Court. And this is supposed to be a unanimous
But do you think
decision.
it's going to change anything? Is there going to be anything that is so drastic that will change once the black and,
Since they have announced it already, I don't think they can change that.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
then, so I'm not sure if that is a plus or a minus that you have to come out already. We have to make that announcement, and then so that nobody would change anymore
Yeah.
his or her vote.
They can't take back their votes. Ma'am,
Yes.
interesting, you say that you go straight to the dispositive portion because you want to see kung nanalo ba kliyente nyo or... So dito, sa sitwasyong ito, nanalo ba ang administrasyon o talo?
Well, okay. Ang malaking, well, I think most have noticed it, although the banner stories of practically all the major dailies ang sinasabi, DAP declared unconstitutional. That's not what the dispositive portion is saying.
Some
the
parts,
DAP,
yeah.
The DAP as a program is not being declared as unconstitutional. In other words, they're not condemning DAP as a program, but only certain acts or practices made in pursuance thereto. Now, but then again, in enumerating those acts and practices that they have declared unconstitutional, they enumerated 4,
Yes.
actually. Then it's so important for us to know why these are being declared as unconstitutional. And are there factual premises for this? Why am I saying this? Because the number 3, let me just check that's why I have to bring
number 3
this.
of the
number 3, the third act or practice that is being declared as unconstitutional, allegedly in violation of the of Section 25, Paragraph 5 of Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution, is number 3. These are the expenditures without appropriation cover. The funding of projects, activities, and programs that were not covered by any appropriation in the General Appropriations Act. Now, I was asking Secretary Butch about this, and he was saying that as far as he knows and as far as the documents that they have submitted to the Supreme Court, there are no such projects, activities, and programs without appropriation cover. So those projects that were being augmented, or the appropriations therefore being augmented, are existing projects and with appropriation cover.
Okay.
So why is it among those now being declared as unconstitutional? What's the factual premise for this?
Yeah.
Did they find, or did they, because of course the DBM would know what they submitted through the Office of the Solicitor.
So ma'am, wait, is that your
Solicitor
answer to the
General.
question? Kung panalo o talo ang administrasyon dito?
The answer to that question? Well, at first glance, well, of course, they're saying
Talo.
talo talaga because dineclare nga as unconstitutional.
Yes.
The ideal ruling for the government is that the Supreme Court would have upheld
Yeah.
the constitutional power of the president
Okay.
to augment appropriations through savings.
Okay.
But inano yun, sinasabi na hindi lahat pwede.
Okay.
Because these 4 items, these 4 acts and practices, they say are unconstitutional.
Ma'am, of course, the way you argue shows that you do not agree with the decision or the ruling of the Supreme Court. Is that correct? You don't agree that it is unconstitutional?
The DAP certainly, as a program, is not unconstitutional. Now, for the first time, they are saying that there are acts and practices we cannot declare as constitutional.
So
because
do you
it
agree with the Supreme
violates-
Court?
Well, as a matter of principle or a proposition, as a legal proposition, as an interpretation of the Constitution, for example, the cross-border transfers
Yeah, meaning from one department to another, or
from
one agency to
from
another.
from executive to another branch of
To the legislative.
to the legislative.
Yung
That's
pagbibigay ng
ng pagbibigay.
DAP sa senador.
Yes, really strict interpretation of the Constitution would
allow that.
prescribe cross-border transfers.
Okay.
But I suppose the executive had duly explained that in their presentation before the Supreme Court through the Office of the Solicitor
Okay. So you agree
General.
that it is, you agree with the Supreme Court ruling?
On letter B.
On letter B.
On letter B. But it has to be with a context. And because I know that there are quarters now who are now saying that dapat may mga managot dito.
Yes.
And in fact,
Some people should be prosecuted for this.
An extreme voice would say, no pwede itong ground for impeachment. But certainly I don't see any such ground because you talk about culpable violation of the Constitution. I don't think there's really such culpable. You know,
Culpable violation of the Constitution is not equal to doing something that is declared unconstitutional.
Correct, definitely. No, not at all. Culpable. That's why there's this qualifying word, culpable. Culpable says, or culpable means
you do it
knowingly, willfully.
So you're saying
quite
if
aware that it's
if
supposed to be illegal. It's supposed to be not allowed. It's supposed to be not in conformity with the Constitution.
If the administration will argue na, we did this in good faith.
Yes,
That's not culpable violation of the
that's
Constitution.
not at all culpable violation. So I don't see any ground for impeachment. Now, the filing of cases, I cannot say that now because it really depends on how the Supreme Court have discussed that. But if we go by the dispositive portion, there's nothing here because if the Supreme Court thinks that there would be basis for the filing of appropriate charges simply because there are certain acts and practices undertaken under the umbrella of the DAP which are unconstitutional. Now there should be, you know, they should lead to prosecution. Then I suppose there must be something here in the dispositive portion. Remember that in the PDAF, just to compare it with the PDAF decision. In the PDAF decision, the Supreme Court also declared PDAF as unconstitutional. But part of the dispositive portion was directing all investigative bodies of government to investigate and prosecute
Okay. Are you saying
the cases of misuse of PDAF.
Because it is not in the dispositive portion of this ruling on DAP, you will not prosecute.
It will be I'm not saying that I will not prosecute. It really depends on the discussion and whether there is a pronouncement or declaration that certain people or certain officials had willingly or willfully and consciously violated the Constitution, or if there is a declaration that there was bad faith or no good faith. But the presumption is always in favor of good faith. And I think and I expect that there would be some discussion on that, the presumption of good faith in the full text.
Should anyone be held liable for this or not? Because you're saying that we are presuming that there was good faith.
The presumption is in favor of good faith. And when an act is done in good faith, it does not give rise to liability.
Even if the Supreme Court says it is unconstitutional.
Because bad faith has to be proven. Just because there is declaration of unconstitutionality does not mean that there is a finding of bad faith or there is a finding of malpractice or misuse of the DAP.
All right, ma'am, we'll go to break first. We have to take a short break. News.PH will be right back. Stay with us.
We agree that a number of Republic Acts have been declared unconstitutional. We have several acts that have been declared unconstitutional in the past, not just in this administration. It never reached the level of impeachability. We've done NOAA, we've done a number of school buildings based on DAP. Do those projects diminish the moral integrity of the president when it has benefited the people?
The Ombudsman, in cooperation, of course, with Justice Department, should file a criminal case against each person because that's a crime. The Constitution says you can't do that, and then you went ahead and did it, and now you have nothing to answer for. You've just committed a crime. So if you're just asking me, can he be impeached? Definitely. But can he be impeached in reality? Meaning to say, you have to count noses. Do you have enough votes there? Because, you know, you have to raise certain votes to bring it to committee, and then from the committee to the plenary and so on. That will be another question. I think it is bound to fail.
Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Still with us, Justice Secretary Laila De Lima, who is decked out all in yellow. Yellow glasses, yellow shawl, yellow. Pati yung hanky niyo, ma'am, yellow.
It's just a fashion statement.
It's a fashion statement?
It's just a fashion statement, nothing political.
Ah, really? Okay, okay. Sige po, I will believe you. Will an impeachment complaint fail because the president controls Congress? In other words, any impeachment complaint, first base pa lang, wala na.
We all know that impeachment is both a legal and political exercise. So as a political exercise, yes, I agree, because we do believe that the president still commands a substantial number of support from both houses of Congress. So as a political exercise, it will most probably fail. And as a legal exercise, it will also fail because there is no ground. As I said, the only possible ground or grounds that any complainant or any petitioner, anyone who would initiate this impeachment complaint would be able to invoke would be culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust. And I honestly think that none or neither of those grounds would apply in this particular case.
It sounds like you're telling the congressman, takot lang niyo mag-file ng impeachment kay presidente. Ganun ba yun, ma'am?
Hindi naman siguro.
Hindi naman.
But it's a fact. It's a fact. And I think other experts, and we just heard Senator Miriam Santiago and several other constitutional experts and political analysts, I think they share the same view. I have not heard anyone yet so far. I don't know if I've heard everyone who already made certain comments since yesterday. I've not heard anyone saying that an impeachment complaint would prosper.
So you're saying
under the premises.
So you're saying at least the administration can rest easy that no impeachment complaint will
yes, because
succeed.
in the first place, I can tell you, Pia, that the administration was in good faith. DAP was a good program. It was a mechanism. It was a mechanism.
Did they consult you when they were putting this program together?
There was
po ba ito sa inyo?
with the DOJ, no.
No. But did they ask you informally, you know, somebody called you up from the palace, Secretary De Lima, can you check out this?
I don't remember any such a consultation, whether formal or informal. But of course, in the course of the discussions in certain cabinet meetings, there was
some discussion.
The DBM would point to such a program, which is really a package for certain reform interventions in order to accelerate public spending. They started in 2011,
right?
Because we saw a problem there about maraming agencies are unable to really obligate or are really unable to spend for the allotted budget within the respective departments for certain reasons.
Well, during any of those discussions in cabinet meetings or other meetings outside of that, did you at any time voice any apprehensions, or you felt that everything was walang problema, lock, stock, and barrel?
Yes, it was something that I felt that was really not novel at all, because I know that there is a constitutional authority on the part that the president has the constitutional authority to augment appropriations through the use of savings. It's both a constitutional and statutory authority.
Even to transfer from one department to another, from the executive to the legislative, pwede po yun, as far as you know?
I must admit that it did not occur to me that there were cross-border transfers. I wasn't
You weren't
sure.
aware of that at the time that
Yes.
some senators were, most of the senators were being given DAP funds.
Under DAP.
Under
Yes,
DAP.
I
No.
just thought all the while that it's PDAF, because that's the common supposed source.
Okay.
Would be PDAF, but as a DAP.
So you knew after after the impeachment trial, you knew that there were funds being given to the senators, and you thought it was just PDAF.
Yes. But later it was it was disclosed that the DBM that these are part of the DAP. We knew the concept of the DAP because almost all of the agencies, I think, within the executive department had been had utilized or had been benefited from the DAP. It just varies from the amounts.
Okay. Liling Briones had asked a question today. She said, paano ito nakapasa sa legal team ng presidente? If you were on the president's legal team and you had the opportunity to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, would you have approved of DAP? Well, on hindsight, now, given this ruling of the Supreme Court.
As a general rule, by and large,
yes,
as the concept it was presented, which is to really accelerate public spending and therefore is a stimulus for economic growth. And it did prove itself to be that, given the numbers and the credit ratings, the upgrade in the credit ratings and the competitive, the global competitive index. These are actually offshoots of this scheme, of this policy of disbursement acceleration. And
so you would not have raised any flags. You wouldn't have said, "Teka muna, may problema tayo dito."
From within the executive department and the power of the president to really augment, to identify and augment that certain appropriations or certain items in the appropriations of whatever agency in the executive department need augmentation from the savings from other departments. This is clear.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the presidential power to augment. Now, I would have taken a second hard look if I had known that there would be some cross-border transfers. But you see, Pia, and I think the Supreme Court is aware of this. I'm not very sure whether this was specifically tackled in the course of the deliberations or this was presented in any of the pleadings submitted by the OSG, that even previous administrations, previous presidencies also undertook those so-called cross-border transfers. So, and kaya nga, dyan talaga papasok yung good faith.
Yeah.
If previous presidents had done that, and the Supreme Court had not declared that act as unconstitutional before, nobody invited the attention of any of these presidents that they could not do it per the Constitution, then how can there be bad faith?
A question from social media on Twitter, Article 8 Jester. You're familiar with Twitter, ma'am, no? And,
yes.
Article 8 Jester. He said, could you ask SOJ if she thinks PNoy has lightweights as legal advisors?
That would be unfair to really say that there are lightweights among the legal advisors. I'm also one of the legal advisors. But if people think, or if certain people have that impression, then that's their right, that's their prerogative, and that's their opinion.
Okay. And one more question from him, because we have to segue into the next segment, and I have another question on that. Could you ask SOJ if she's a Vilmanian? May panyo kasi siya sa kamay.
Actually, Noranian ako eh.
Aha, okay.
And then Nora and I came from the same place.
Region, no?
Iriga City.
Bicol.
Iriga.
Iriga, okay.
Mismo. And my father was telling me that Nora is actually a distant relative.
Oh, okay. So should she have been national artist?
We have to respect the decision of the president. There's a prerogative of the president, especially so that he has a reason for so exercising his prerogative in that manner.
Well, he said that it was because of a drug conviction. But here comes the lawyer of Ms. Honor saying that there was no drug conviction.
Whether or not there was drug conviction is irrelevant. The fact remains that it's common knowledge, and that she had problems. She had drug problems before. And the president, I must tell you, is just being consistent. Talagang galit yan sa drugs. In fact, sa mga applications for executive clemency, wala pang nakakapasa. Even if the BPP would recommend the grant of executive clemency, whether it's pardon,
Yeah.
parole,
Okay.
commutation of sentence, kapag drug case, out na yan. Kay
Okay.
Presidente.
But then, so should we just amend, if there is such a thing, amend the criteria for choosing who should be given or who should be made national artist? Because yung personal life and or morality or hindi yun sakop eh. Wala siya doon sa criteria.
Well, I guess it's just a matter of fine-tuning those standards. Although we just have to leave it also to the judgment call, to the discretion of the members of that body which make the nomination. But since it's, again, just a nomination and the final say is the president, then the president has his own standards by which to exercise his prerogative in that
He can
area.
follow another set of criteria.
Correct.
If he wants to. All right. Thank you very much. Secretary Laila De Lima, the Justice Department. Thank you, ma'am, for being here.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break. News.PH will be right back. Stay with us.
Now, nung humarap sa akin itong mga nominations, isa lang naman tanong, ano ba yung titulo? National Artist. No? At sa akin pananaw, yung National Artist, binibigyan natin ng honor na to, puri na ganito, dahil gusto natin sabihin, malaking inambag sa lahing Pilipino at dapat tularan. Kaya naging problema ko lang doon, alam naman natin lahat, na tinagala ko ulit si Binibino Honor, na-convict po siya sa drugs. Okay. Na-convict at naparusahan. At ang tanong ngayon dito, pag ginawa ba natin national artist, may mensahe ba akong maliwanag na sinasabi sa bayanan?
Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Joining us tonight, Ross Capili, artist and founder of Arts Philippines, a social network for visual artists and former National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Council member Pandy Aviado, printmaker, former head of the Cultural Center of the Philippines, and former National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Am I reading this correct? Council member and Rian Hill Soriano, a filmmaker and critique. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Okay, let's begin with this. What is the criteria for national artists? Ross or Pandy?
Well, there is a booklet containing all the information regarding nominees for the national artists. What we are trying to question is why does it have to pass through the president for approval?
Yeah.
Since it was conceived as a part of the dictator's prerogative.
Yung kailangan dumaan sa presidente.
Yeah, oo.
Okay.
Kasi ang start niyan, it was President Marcos who appoints the national artists. And then when the EDSA revolution happened, they just took over the dictatorial machinery, and they themselves became the people dictating on us who the national artist would be.
Okay, when you say they, who are you referring to?
The government.
The government.
Yeah.
So any administration. But well, my first question was, what is their criteria? Because I just wanted to establish if in any way, in any shape or form, kung meron ba doon sa criteria ng national artist yung tungkol sa morality or your personal life or your, how you choose to, if you have an addiction or something.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I don't think so. Yeah.
None. Ross?
Meron yatang, parang lang nabasa ko, no? Yung parang number 2 na yung person with parang good moral character. Yun yata yung point na
yeah. Good moral character.
Yeah.
Yun
Okay.
lang,
Like Garcia Villa, I suppose.
Why? What about Garcia Villa?
Well, he's a bohemian. He was a bohemian.
Okay. If we were going to go through, if we were going to go through the list of all those who have been named national artists, and then we rake them all over the coals and look at each one of them and check, ito ba of good moral character itong mga to? Lahat ba yan papasa?
Hindi natin masabi.
Good question. That's a good question.
Okay, but should it be, because we are of the impression that when you are going to be named a national artist, diba? You're being named a national artist for your body of work,
Right.
diba?
Right.
Rian, you wanna?
Yes, I firmly believe, as a part of the film industry, that case, or the reason why she was excluded, is not in any way related to what she has contributed in cinema. And considering the fact that she went through the rigid process of the NCCA, would make me think that she is qualified to begin with. And in as much as, I would have to respect the president's prerogative, although that doesn't mean that I agree with him. So I go back to the reason that she went through the process, and a lot of people in our country would probably, like me, support the conferment of the national artist title to her. Then, basically that's it.
Well, if that's going to be the case, if you have a president who will decide on this person is going to not be a national artist because of a drug addiction past, or drug use past, whatever is the correct term there, then should we just amend
Actually, every time
the criteria, and then dagdag na lang natin para hindi na tayo ma-confuse?
Actually, every time na mayroong bagong presidente, magkakaroon ng problema because of that prerogative nga eh. And pinag-uusapan lang natin isang segment or isang medium ng sa arts, that's film, yung may mga dapat ding baguhin, like sa amin, sa under ng visual arts. Sa visual arts kasi, naglalaban yung painting, photography, sculpture. Actually, ang dami. Before nung time ni Marcos, ilan lang eh. Pero ngayon, syempre, yung medium, acceptable na yung performance art. Kaya nga, nasa na yung, let's say, napapag-iwanan eh. Kaya nga, yun nga, I have a long list, mga around 200 na senior, 60 and above na visual artist, in waiting talaga.
Can you show it to us?
If I can show it to you, this is the long list eh. So,
parang
visual artists, so 60 years old and above, waiting, wait lists for the National Artist Award. This is a scroll actually.
Well, some of them have already passed away.
There.
Pasita Abad, for example.
Sayang
Okay.
Kaya sila yung sana bigyan ng recognition. Now, do they have the chance na i-present yung kanilang medium or yung kanilang life? So, umiikot tayo ngayon dito sa issue ng national artists. Pero maraming napapag-iwanan. Imagine, Pia, for 10 years, 3 national artists lang sa visual arts ang pinoproclaim. Ano mangyayari dito sa 60 years old hanggang 100 years old? So, hindi talaga, walang chance na wala pa yung mid-career artists. Yung 36 up to 59 years old. So, yun ang na dapat,
Kasama kayo doon, sa mid-career artist,
yung
39 to 50.
Ako yun. Pero si
Pandy.
Pandy kasama siya sa 60 and above.
So may senior citizens card.
I'm 55, kaya mga ilang years pa lang. Pero, we are after this, baguhin yung proseso, na i-present naman at look dun sa isang angulo na yung visual artists, napakadami. Naglalaban ng painter and sculptors and photographers. And most of the time, I think, painter yung napaproclaim na national artist.
Okay.
So, siguro, in 10 years...
So, this is like a blessing in disguise, na napag-uusapan ng national artist, nor controversy. The spotlight is now... So you're just, in a way, taking advantage of this public discussion.
Kung pwede, kung pwedeng i-raise sa president, magkaroon ng petition na, ba't di natin ito baguhin o dagdagan or ayusin?
But I thought you're also questioning the prerogative of the president.
Yes.
Na kailangan dumaan sa presidente.
In fact, I would like to appeal to PNoy to spare us from, in his sona, he usually says, kayo ang aming mga boss.
Kayong boss ko.
Kayong boss ko. Ngayon, please spare us to say that we are your boss because in this decision, wherein he excluded Nora, he shows that he is the boss. Hindi kami ang boss.
Okay. You do all three, well, because you've already said, no, na she should have been declared national artist.
Yeah.
The two of you are saying that Nora Honor should have been named national artist.
Nasa fine line yung Meron kasing fine line na masasabi na.
Okay.
The art community says, okay, pwede siyang maging national artist. Pero siyempre, nandun pa rin yung prerogative ng president. Kaya nasa fine line
Yeah. No, but but what I'm saying is, kayo nga sa art community, what are you saying? Na pwede siyang mag-national artist kahit na meron siyang drug use in her past?
Yeah, as respeto sa kapwa-artist, okay naman siyang i-declare. Yun lang. Even if under siya ng film, the same way din, kapag sa kapwa namin visual artist, ganun din yung mangyari. Let's say, nagkaroon siya ng problem. Hindi maganda yung habit niya. Pero ang dapat din talaga tignan, yung kanyang merits, yung kanyang artistic merits. Rather than yung kanyang yung life.
Yeah. Are we saying na merong national... Di ba merong mga national artists
An
na...
example is the knighthood of Elton John. Elton John has publicly stated that he has taken drugs and everything, and yet he was
knighted
knighted
by Queen Elizabeth
by the Queen.
II.
The Beatles.
Yeah. Okay. But what about... Let's come back to the Philippines, no?
Okay.
Sa roster ng national artists
yeah.
natin, meron bang may nag-drug use dito?
Maybe they should take a drug test, to...
I
You're seriously suggesting a drug test for nominees for national art? No.
No.
Kasi si Nora kasi television Kaya
and the movies?
talagang open book talagang in limelight, 'di ba nandiyan. Unlike yung visual artists, medyo
tago.
Hindi nakikita yung hindi naman siya ganun ka nandoon siya palagi sa sa movie or sa television.
Okay, we'll have to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Alam nyo, yung drugs, meron tayong local na problema pagkatagal-tagal na. Sinamahan pa ng, nakakita naman nyo yung mga reports na may West African syndicates. Merong, Mexican syndicates na pumapasok na sa Pilipinas at nagkakalat ng bawal na droga. Yung, ayoko magkaroon ng mensahe na kuminsan pwede yung illegal na droga or acceptable. Yung dapat yung mensahe, it is always bad and illegal drugs do nobody any good. And I cannot emphasize that message enough. No, and at the same time, parang raise Miss Nora Honor to be a national, I repeat, in the national artist.
You said the president can exclude but not add. He has the discretion to make a choice, and he need not justify why he made those decisions. However, can the president add to the criteria, and say na meron kasing isang factor dito, halimbawa itong quote-unquote morality issue?
There is no precedent for a president adding to a criteria if ever this is going to be the first time. So if such is indeed the case here, although we disagree that the criteria had been added, because as we said, the president's discretion to exclude does not require an explanation, and therefore whatever explanation he posits is valid as far as we're concerned with compliance to the law. So if indeed this can be interpreted as an addition to the criteria, we at NCCA don't really see it that way. The criteria is clear. It's in black and white.
Okay. One last question, Attorney Angeles. Let's reimagine things, no? What if the criteria included questions on morality, like addiction, for example, or drugs, alcohol, etc., even promiscuity or whatever, no? On the personal side, what would have happened?
Well, on the part of the NCC and CCP, we are not qualified to make those kinds of evaluations or value judgments on their personal lives because the criteria on our part is clear. Even if there was a morality clause, this would be within the limits of the power of the Malacanang Honors Committee to determine, because their jobs are to determine whether or not compliance to the rules have been made and if the candidate is in good standing. So that this lies squarely within Malacanang Honors Committee to determine.
Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Still with us, Ross Capili, Pandy Aviado, and Rian Hill Soriano. And joining us by telephone now, Bienvenido Lumbera, National Artist for Literature. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us by phone. Mr. Lumbera?
Yes.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Good evening.
Pakilakas ang boses, ha?
Yes, sir. Okay po. Good evening, sir. Can you tell us, should Nora Honor be declared a national artist?
Yes. She was chosen by the committee appointed to do the same, to exactly that, make him a national artist.
Mm-hmm. But the president removed her name because he said that yung drug use past niya should work against her being a national artist.
His decision is based on wrong information because the lawyer of Nora Honor in the States had denied that there was any conviction at all.
Mm-hmm. What if the president had said now, whether or not there is a conviction, the fact that she used drugs works against her? Do you agree, sir, that the personal life of the artist should be included in the criteria?
That criterion will open the way for the entry of mediocre artists just because these artists are good citizens and have led moral lives. But that's not how artists should be judged. Mm-hmm. They should be judged by the achievement that they have accumulated over the years that they have been artists.
But we have a situation, Mr. Lumbera, where, of course, the president can exclude someone from the list, but not include or add anyone. Are you saying that the art community would like this to change?
The committee that decided on Nora Honor consisted of people from NCCA and CCP. Both are officers under the president's office. Therefore, he should have respected the choice that's made by the committee for in NCCA and CCP.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Lumbera, in good standing, isa sa kasama no, sa criteria. When you say in good standing, ano pong ibig sabihin nun? What does it really mean?
I don't know. I don't know what they mean by good standing. Mm-hmm. Precisely, that's what I fear. That the addition of that criteria about morality and good citizenship opens the way for mediocre artists to be proclaimed national artists. Mm-hmm.
My one last question, Mr. Lumbera. If we were to go through the list of all the national artists of the Philippines, at kunwari merong criteria ng morality or addiction or anything else, no? Meron po bang hindi papasa?
Palagay ko, pagka talagang sinuri ang listahan ng mga national artists, makikita na ang mga artista lead many lives. And in these many lives, they're bound one way or the other to violate certain moral norms or citizenship norms.
Mr. Lumbera, I'm sorry. Could you turn down the volume of your television monitor so that wala pong feedback? Nagfi-feedback po kasi. So we missed the first two sentences of your answer. And then can you repeat that, please, sir?
Sige, I'm going to turn down the volume.
Sige po. Can you repeat your answer, sir? My question was if we had gone through the list of national artists, so meaning since 1972, meron po bang hindi papasa kung ang pag-uusapan ay morality, addiction, etc.?
Yes, definitely I think so. Once an investigation into the private lives of the artists, then some artists are not going to pass the norm that the president has just invented.
Okay. My one last question na po talaga, Mr. Lumbera. Do you want to see a change in the participation of the president, the chief executive, in the choice of national artists?
Yes, definitely. I think one suggestion has been that the president's office should have a representative in the committee that finally decides the list to be submitted to Malacanang.
All right.
Another possibility is for the president to remember that the NCCA and CCP are offices under the president's office. And therefore, he should respect the opinions of people in these very committees that are part of this office.
Dahil hindi po naman the award for national artists, are you saying na hindi naman po ito for sainthood or anything? Hindi naman po kayo mga santo, no? Hindi po ba?
Oh, exactly.
Okay, well, yeah, I just got that from Jojo Malig. Thank you for that tweet. Okay, maraming salamat po, Mr. Bienvenido Lumbera. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Bienvenido Lumbera, National Artist for Literature. Well, I was just paraphrasing from a tweet of Jojo Malig, and he had tweeted yesterday, shouldn't someone be assessed by his or her body of work instead of criminal record? It's an award for artists, not for sainthood. You agree?
Yep, agree.
Yeah, okay.
Agree, yeah.
We have 1.5 minutes left, so let's just get your final words. Yan?
Like what Mr. Bienvenido Lumbera said, the NCCA is under the office of the President of the Philippines. So he would, for me, dapat irespeto niya na pinili ng NCCA at ng CCP si Nora Honor. And therefore, ayun, parang ang sa akin lang, parang sayang lang yung rigid process of selection na in a whim you can just remove it like that.
But you know, kanina I asked Secretary Laila de Lima, and she said, you know, the President feels very, very strongly about drugs.
Yes, well, it's very subjective. It's like I said, I would have to respect his opinion on it, and well, I have to respect his decision because he's the president. It's his prerogative, but I still don't agree with it. As an artist, I would want myself to be evaluated and appreciated through my body of work and not my private life. So,
But you are in good standing, di ba?
well, I believe
I mean, you're a
so.
good citizen.
I believe so. I'm not convicted of anything.
Okay,
so.
mabait at mabuti kang tao. Wala ka namang, may kaso bang nakahain laban sa'yo?
Wala naman.
Wala naman.
So,
okay. Before we talk about your personal lives, let's get your final words. Fandy Aviado?
Well, an appeal to the public servant number 1, makinig ka sa amin, kami ang boss mo. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Ross Kapili?
I think ito na yung ngayon chance na malinawan yung role ng President since na nandiyan naman ang NCCA sa CCP and ang national artist talaga is nominated pa rin siya ng peer group.
Yes.
Meaning yung kapwa rin artists. So yung judgment, nakasama mo na yan for kahit mga ilang taon eh. Kaya doon na nakita yung level nung nomination eh. Ang presidente kasi hindi naman niya nakakasama yung kapwa artist, no? So, it's a matter of trust din. Kapag nandiyan na yung CCP and CCA, it's more of delegation na lang siguro and confirmation na lang on the part of the president.
You're saying ministerial.
Yeah,
Ang gusto niya mangyari, pirma na lang siya.
Yep.
Ganon.
Kasi nga,
Just like the mother.
Kasi kaya, so every time na mayroong bagong presidente, uulit-ulit yung problema. So, kung ano yung in-endorse ng peer group,
That's it.
yun na yun.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ross Capili, Pandy Aviado, and Rian Hill Soriano, and of course to Mr. Bienvenido Lumbero, who joined us by telephone. Maraming salamat. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.
Is still being routed for signing.
Signatures, yeah.
So, well, what I know is that a decision, unless and until promulgated, is no decision at all. But there's been an announcement already. But as I said, the Supreme Court must have a reason why they authorized the spokesperson to announce already the results
well,
of the
could it be
voting.
because Tuesday is en banc session day, and they really did make a decision already earlier in that day, and then they were just going to make the announcement and then to follow in black and white?
Oh, well, yes, they could have just announced that, yes, there have been voting already. But as to exactly what the decision is, we have to defer that until everybody signs the decision and until everybody issues their respective opinions, whether, of course, there is a ponencia, and they say that it is a unanimous decision, but then again, I'm sure there would be members that would be issuing their respective separate concurring opinions.
But ma'am, many of us in my profession, media, quite a number of us have covered the justice beat, and part of our training is when we come across a decision or a resolution or any ruling is let's go straight to the dispositive portion first, and then we read.
Oh yes,
then we read from
the lawyers
from
do that also. Most lawyers do that.
Good evening. This is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. There were two big political stories yesterday. The Supreme Court declared some parts of the disbursement acceleration program unconstitutional, and President Aquino, after a few days, spoke up and admitted it was what he claimed was a drug conviction that convinced him to exclude Nora Honor from the list of those who would be named national artists. We will talk about the national artist controversy, but let's talk first to a member of the President's cabinet about the DAP and pork. And well, maybe we could ask her about Nora Honor, Justice Secretary Daida de Lima. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Pia. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my first time in your show, in this show, but certainly not my first time with you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again for being here. Ma'am, let's begin with this. What is your reading of yesterday's ruling of the Supreme Court on the DAP?
You see, Pia, it's difficult to really make such any definitive comment at this point that we have not seen yet the full text of the decision. We have been shown the dispositive portion that was announced by the spokesperson of the Supreme Court. But it's really difficult to make any commentary or to make any conclusion at this point, because it's like watching a movie at the ending part, and then people
backtracking.
People will ask, maganda ba yung movie?
Okay.
Nang pinakita lang sa'yo is the ending. I'm also wondering, well, I guess the Supreme Court has a reason why they have to do that, why they have to make an advance announcement. And I think this is not the first time that they did it, if I'm not mistaken, when they issued also, or they issued or they announced the decision of the RH, the RH law. And then they told us, Attorney Teo was announcing also that the decision, okay, ang malaking, well, I think most have noticed it, although the banner stories of practically all the major dailies ang sinasabi, DAP declared unconstitutional. That's not what the dispositive portion is saying. The DAP as a program is not being declared as unconstitutional. In other words, they're not condemning DAP as a program, but only certain acts or practices made in pursuance thereto. Now, but then again, in enumerating those acts and practices that they have declared unconstitutional, they enumerated 4, actually. Then it's so important for us to know why these are being declared as unconstitutional. And are there factual premises for this? Why am I saying this? Because the number 3, let me just check that's why I have to bring this. The number 3, the third act or practice that is being declared as unconstitutional, allegedly in violation of of Section 25, Paragraph 5 of Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution, is number 3. These are the when I was still practicing, that's what I do whenever I receive a copy of any decision, especially those that I'm looking forward to, I've been expecting. So I would look at the dispositive portion first, because you have to know kung nanalo ka o hindi, nanalo yung kliyente mo o hindi. And then then you just go back to the full text. But then again, issues like this, these are major issues. We have to know at once the context by which, or the raison d'etre, why that's the ruling of the Supreme Court, and this is supposed to be a unanimous
But do you think
decision.
it's going to change anything? Is there going to be anything that is so drastic that will change once the black and
Since they have announced it already, I don't think they can change that.
Yeah.
And
okay.
then, so I'm not sure if that is a plus or a minus that you have to come out already. We have to make that announcement, and then so that nobody would change anymore his or her vote.
They can't take back their votes.
Yes.
Ma'am, interesting, you say that you go straight to the dispositive portion because you want to see kung nanalo ba kliyente nyo, or so dito sa sitwasyong ito, nanalo ba ang administrasyon o talo?
Well,